What's up, y'all? My name is Chris. I'm excited to be here with you for another Illustrator daily challenge. We are going to be hopping into Illustrator and then probably going into Dimension to kind of show y'all a little bit about some 3D object and layout design. I'm really excited about this one. I've been doing a lot of fiddling with 3D objects and layout design recently in Illustrator. So this is definitely something that I'm super pumped about. If you don't know who I am, my name is Chris Porter. I am a creative director at Baby Grand. We are a design studio in Memphis, Tennessee, where we do branding from everything under the sun. We're a full service agency, so I work primarily in like logo design, web design, digital, physical, and just campaign work. So it's really fun to do. Let's see what we got hopping over in the chat. We've got some people watching. What's up? How are y'all doing? Let me know if you've had a chance to download this file. You've got access to everything. And let's just hop right into this. We've got about 25-ish or so minutes. So let's fade into this. So this is going to be our file that we're going to be working in today. I'm super excited about this, like I said. So what I've kind of given you to start is some directions over on the left, and we've got a bunch of items here in the middle. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to turn these objects into 3D objects. We're going to then create sort of a game board, and then we're going to create a card. And we're going to use some of these icons to create different cards, and then we're going to put them into a landscape, and then we're going to take one of these objects into Dimension. I'll show you how to export it and the best way to do that. So again, we've got this over here. We'll try to create a custom dice as well. It'll be pretty easy to do with these icons. So the first thing, you don't have these fonts. These are Adobe fonts that you can find. This is from Amy and Jen Hood, the Chutzpah Design Co. They have some of my favorite fonts in the whole Adobe suite. So this one here is called Santa Ana Sands. This is Venice Boulevard, and this is Beverly Drive Right. So we're going to be using those for any type that we need to create. So the first thing I want to show y'all is just turning an object into 3D. It's really simple to do in Adobe Illustrator. So we've got these different objects here, and you'll notice that they're all flattened, and that is because I want to show y'all the difference between turning a flattened 3D object into one that has more dimension. So if you're making like a board game, for instance, which is what this is, I make board games for fun, you want to have like wooden pieces because they're easier to make. So this is like a common meeple. So you'll go over here to your panels. I've actually opened up this window. So if you don't have this, you can go to Window and then 3D and Materials. But for me, I've got it already over here. So I'll go to this, and then I can hit Extrude, and it automatically turns it into 3D. Now, I use millimeters because millimeters is sort of the metric system and everything that is more widely used than inches. So I'm going to come over here to my properties panel and change this to millimeters. It helps me to kind of understand just how the depth of an object is. So then I can come back into the 3D panels, and you've got different tabs here. You've got object, you've got material, and you've got lighting, and then this over here is your render. So when you feel like you've got it ready, you can hit render and it'll make it look snazzy. Okay, so we've got this extruded, and I'm gonna make this. This is super, it's way bigger than it needs to be, but just for the sake of showing you how thick, we're gonna make this like 50 millimeters. You can see that that's starting to look really cool. So let's do a Control Plus to zoom in. I've got a fancy mouse, so I've got all these keyboard shortcuts. And you notice that there's shadows already on this object. And so whenever you want to change the orientation of an object, you can come in here and you can use this to rotate it freely. And you can see that it's just, the light is stationary. So everywhere you move it, the light's going to be hitting it from the same sort of angle. But if you want to change how that lighting is done, you can come in here to the lighting and you can change it to diffuse lighting, standard, top left. They've got some very typical ones built in here. I usually do this, and then depending upon my scene, you can use this to rotate the light around, which is just really cool. Okay, so we're going to edit, undo that. I'm going to keep it very basic for this scenario here. So we've got one object there, and I want to go ahead and do this one the same. So we're going to come in here, we're going to extrude that, and we're going to make it 50 millimeters. And the cool thing about this is that these are totally still live vectors. So if you come in here to your appearance panel, you can actually see that it's got the 3D object appearance still built in. So you can just turn that off and you can totally edit it. So let's do that for this specifically, because I want people to know that this is a first player, this is going to be a second player, and this is going to be a third player. Okay, so we're going to turn this one like blue. Maybe we turn this one purple and keep this one orange. And yes, the term meeple is like miniature people, mini people. So it's meeple. It's really, really fun turn here. So we're going to take this font. So I'm going to alt drag that up. And let me just kind of clear some space here. And let's just put a 1 on that. All right. Really, really simple. We'll come up here. We'll make this bold. Actually, I might kind of want a little bit more of a fancier one. So I'm going to use this font instead, which is Venice Boulevard. There we go. I want a little bit of a fancier one there. And let's make it really thick. Let's make it there. So we want to make sure this little meeple here has got a 1 on him. And let's give him like I'm going to use my curvature tool here. So let's give him like a apron or something maybe. That'd be kind of interesting. All right, so we're gonna do that, and then I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna switch back to the pen tool. We'll come here, there. I did this all wrong. Let's just do this a better way. Okay, we're gonna just start with a square. All right, we're gonna start here, and now I'm gonna use my curvature tool, and I'm gonna add that there. Okay, so that's what I want him to be wearing, and then I'm gonna do that. And let's give him like some of those the spaghetti string wrap that go over. I don't know. Chat, you tell me what that's called. I don't really know what it's called, to be honest. The straps that go over your shoulder that hold it down. Okay. Cool. And then we'll turn this white. We'll cut and paste that in place. All right. And I want to make this a little bit bigger. And this is just to give a little bit of a flavor, okay? This is not a final kind of thing. Okay, so that's what we want to be screen printed on our meeple. So I'm going to Command G to group that together. Okay, so the cool thing about this, I can do this all at once. So let's go ahead and extrude all of this, or I guess it won't. Oh yeah, because I've turned it off, right? So go back to my appearance panel and I turn on the 3D materials are already done. Great. Now, I knew that I shouldn't have done this where there are two different objects, right? Because it's not on it. So I'm going to cut that. I'm going to cut. I'm going to paste in place on it. And, well, I want to make sure that it's grouped together. So let's group it. Okay. Now you notice the 3D is not there. So that's not how you insert things on. Instead, because it's a 3D object, what you need to do is you need to come in, turn it on, open up your panel, and you can see that you've got a materials thing here, all right? And we want to add a material. We want to add a graphic to this. So I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to come to properties, and I'm going to click this plus icon that says add materials, okay? Let's see. It should just drag in there. There we go. So we've dragged that in. And then now when I highlight it, I can click it and it just goes right on there. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit. And you're able to just straight up click and drag this around as you need to. Cool. So pretty neat how you can just go in there. And again, it's live. So if I need to, I can come in and go back and tweak it. All right. But if I need to tweak that graphic, I can come back here and I can edit the graphic. I can replace it with something else. Okay, so just for the sake of getting this out, let's just go ahead and let's make another one here where this is, and I'm going to hit Command D to duplicate that same action. Let's turn this into a 2 and turn this into a 3. Okay. All right, so let's add these graphics in. So I'm going to click and drag that over. I'm going to click and drag that over there. Now I want to add these graphics to this. So I'm going to click and add it there. And then I'm just going to drag that to right there. And then I'm going to add this 3 here to this one, and boom. Great. That's looking pretty neat. I've got my first, my second, and my third player markers very, very easily right there. And they look really nice. And you can scale it up, you can scale it down, and it can maintain its vectorized look and feel. Now, this is a flat graphic, so let's kind of show you how you can add a bit more dimension. So if you wanted to add, like, make something plastic instead of it being wood. All right, so we'll come here to 3D, and again, we would hit extrude. Now, again, when you extrude something that doesn't have multiple layers, it's gonna kind of come across as this flat thing, right? And so that's not necessarily what we wanted, okay? But it kind of works. It's gonna be much easier to build that in Dimension or in Adobe's latest 3D model. So this is really, really good for wooden pieces that can be dimensionalized out this way, but you also can do a revolve, which creates that. Now, if we wanted to have it to be a circle revolve on top of a pillar, it's not always going to work perfectly, right? Because we can circle, well, I just extruded it, but we can revolve this, okay? And again, doesn't totally come across that way. So I prefer to create things in this 2-dimensional shape. Now we need to make a game board, okay? So let's make like a checkerboard or something. That'd be kind of fun. And it can show you how that you are able to, you know, move that. Oh, I accidentally hit this tool here. So if we hold Alt and then we change this to white, and now we can click Shift Alt there, and then we can hit Command D. Okay, we've kind of created a little checkerboard here. So we're going to Alt drag again, and let's flip this over so this is alternating. And let's do this again here, and then one more. Okay, so we've got a little mini checkerboard here, which I think is pretty neat. So we're going to group this together, and instead of doing an extrude, because if we do an extrude, which it's cool, right? It's got that dimension to it. Maybe I want to make it a plane. So a plane is flat. So it's totally flat in here. But if you go to extrude, you can add a bit more depth to it. Okay. So I want to be able to put these on this board and kind of show a little bit of how this would work. All right. And show maybe how this would lay out. But it might take me a little bit to get this perfect, right? Because I'm using this to move it around, and I don't really know exactly the right angle for these to fit on there. So instead of trying to move that around, I'm going to use some presets defined by Adobe. So I can come here, I can do isometric bottom or isometric top, you know, isometric right. All right. It just gives you a little bit more of an understanding. You've got a very defined playing field right now. Okay. So I can go over here, I can drag my little guy, and I'm going to bring him to the front. All right, so that's Shift Command and then like the bracket, right? But again, that's totally not the same because this is off axis front, this is isometric top. So I need to change this to my isometric top as well. And you can kind of see that he lays down flat a little bit better. But I want to be able to have that angle. So I changed it to isometric right. And now you can see that this lighting and the shading is all matching pretty neat, right? So I can put this little guy there. Cool, that's the second player. And then I'm gonna group or do this, bring these, both of these over. And again, they need to be in front. So I'm gonna bring them to front. And I wanna be able to have them be the same. So we're gonna go isometric right. And maybe this one is isometric left, depending upon how this is. And now I've got this blue on blue, so it's not really working. So again, I can just use my direct select tool and I can just select a new color. So maybe let's make this person yellow. Oh, yellow's really strong. Maybe we'll make them like pink. No, maybe green. Yeah, there we go. Green's looking good. Okay, so I've done this here. And you can move these pieces around, right? And you can be able to easily identify where they need to go. And you've added some cool dimension to your design. What I like about doing all this is you can do a lot of fun, cool dimensional things, and it doesn't have to be for games. You can totally use this to create posters. You can use this for cards, promotional materials that are very different. It gives a very different outlook on how to lay things out. Now, maybe I want to add a dice into this. Okay, so let's do a little square here. And I want this dice to be white because I've got some symbols here that are going to be on the dice. So I'm going to go back in here to my 3D materials. I'm going to extrude this. And let's just make the depth. Let's make it like 100. Okay. And I want to kind of bevel this a little bit. I want it to be like not so rough around the edges. So I'm going to tweak that a little bit to where it is a little bit calmer. Okay. And maybe add a little bit more depth to it. Nice. All right. So again, I want to add these symbols to this dice. So really, really simple. I'm going to shrink it down to where it feels like it's actually, kind of similar to what these might be. And I'm not going to make it the same angle just yet. I'm going to add multiple images to this dice so that way I go around. And you notice that these are hard edges. If you come in here to the normal, same thing, you can curve this edge and you can make it a bit more smooth, right? And so this feels a little bit more like an actual dice. Okay, so I'm going to make note of how big this is. This is like 35. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that way I can add these in. Now, the same thing we're going to do with the screen print on the first one, we're going to add to this. So we're going to come here and we're going to come over to materials and we're going to just drag some of these symbols over. I'm going to drag this one. Who knows what this is? These are all just fun things that you're able to download. And then we're going to click our object and we're just going to click this. Okay. Now, boom, look at that. That's pretty awesome. And again, I want to be able to add more, and you can add more. I mean, that's just really, really cool to be able to see how that all comes together. All right, so we're going to add this one. Maybe we'll add it right here. Now I need to have the other backside of the dice. So again, we're going to add more symbols. Okay. There we go. Let's rotate this around a little bit more. Maybe we have a couple different battle symbols on this instead of just the one. And noticing this is a little bit more rectangular than I want it to be. I want it to be a bit more square. So we're going to decrease the depth of that a little bit there. There we go. All right. And then we need one more on the bottom. Let's add another, maybe we add another lightning bolt. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now I've got all my graphics on it. And let's just get this looking where it's in the correct layout. So we'll go over here. Oops, I accidentally did a repeat on that. We'll select it. Come down here. We'll do, instead of a custom rotation, again, we'll do maybe isometric top. There we go. We'll shrink that down. I think I said it was like 39 or 40. So we'll just change that to be 40. Great. And now we've got a dice. So I'm using my hand tool to kind of navigate around here. Okay. Now we've got a really cool little board layout, and you can totally do all of these the same way, right? I left these in here. Feel free to play around in your own way to make your own cool little board layout. But I want to show you how to bring these into dimension, which is where you can do a lot more things. Okay. So let's say that we were really happy with this. I can come in here and I can go into my 3D materials and I can hit render. Now you can totally export these as vectorized rendered 3D graphics. You can see the slight difference here in this shadow compared to this one. It's a little bit more crisp. You have a little bit more of that curved edge showing, it just feels better. It just feels better. But if you want to take it to the next level, you want to be able to, have something cool there. So if you want to add a card as well, it's very, very easy. You can do that. We can just copy and paste. There we go. And we can totally put this little guy on a card and then come up here and say, on your turn, do yada, yada, yada. Okay. It's very, very simple to be able to add these things in Adobe Illustrator. So we've got a couple more minutes here. I'm going to show you how to export this out into Dimension. So we did this a little bit in our last stream, but I'm going to show you how to asset export. So I've got this asset here that I want to be able to export out. I'm going to go ahead and click this plus button. Now, if I wanted to add multiple at once, I can highlight these and I can hit this multiple and it gets all of them. Okay. And I'm going to go in here and then I'm going to add the format to be a GLTF format. Okay. And let's go ahead and choose the folder, get this going. We're going to make this Adobe dash, choose a folder. Cool. We'll do this into tests and choose, and then we're going to export these out. So what these are different type of files that Adobe Dimension can read. You could also export them as like object files if you're in something else. I prefer this. This works really well. Okay, so let's go into Dimension. I'm going to pull this up. This is one of my other components from one of my other games. I just wanted to leave it in here as a point of reference for size. But what you want to do is I'm going to come in here, File. You go Import 3D Model. Come into Test, and let's just choose this one here. Okay, and you can see that it's right there. That's pretty cool. Okay, so this black dot here, you drag this around to be able to move the object along the bottom plane. Okay, and you can use this to move it, scale it down. Okay, pretty neat. Very, very cool. And what you can do too is if you press F, you can zoom right in. And if you hold, click, and use the right, like I use the right click to do this. So you click and hold right, and you're able to kind of get where you want to maybe take a picture of it. All right. So let's do that. And let's go over here to add camera. So in this little section over here, the same way we might try to export a scene from Adobe Illustrator, we're actually going to add a camera here. Okay, so that camera is now telling me what it's going to export. Now I'm going to go over here to render. All right, and this is how you're able to render out different things. So I could choose to render any of these cameras that are already built in here. Let's just do a really simple thing. Let's just do like a draft and let's just render something. Okay, so it should be rendering that file that we just did. Look at that. It's got lighting, it's got shading. You know, there's a few bugs in here because we're moving so fast, but it's pretty incredible what you're able to do. You're able to bring something in from Illustrator into this. And let's over here to the chat. Yes, I do make games. I've got a game company called Chris Couch Games, and I also do it as like a little bit of a hobby. But yeah, you're able to do a really, really cool things all up in this. All right. So yeah, there you go. And then if we want to bring in another one, right, we come in here and we come in the import 3D model. And I'm not sure if the dice was number 5. Dice was number 2 and the board was number 5. Okay, so let's import the dice. Let's see how that does. And you can see the dice is right there. Now you don't want to be on the camera when you're moving around. So you want to go back to viewport camera because that allows you to kind of move around a bit more. Okay, so we're going to do that. And then we'll scale this down. Dice are probably about that big. All right, now let's import our game board. Import 3D model, number 5. Okay, game board, very, very large. You can see there's a little bit of a color disparity as well, and that's just due to the different settings that are in all these. And you'll want to make sure that your color settings are all the same. Okay, so you use these balls to sort of rotate it down. So I'm going to use this to rotate all the way down. All right, let's see. Almost there. Almost there. Cool. Good enough for now. All right. And so again, we can come over here with this dot, and it's going to lay flat on the on the flattest plane that it's next to. Okay. So let's just go here. Let's delete this since we don't need it anymore. Okay. And now let's go back to our camera. And you can see that it is a little bit too wide. Use that to drag over. And we could totally render this out. So we're going to hit render really quickly. But yeah, that is how you would be able to do all that. Now, again, you can find all these files on it. Let me know in the comments what y'all are able to do. This has been really, really fun being able to do all this with y'all. I think that you're able to make a lot of really great stuff that I can't do because y'all's creativity is on another level. So let me know in social media, in any kind of platform in the comments, what are you able to make with these 3D softwares? They're really, really great how they integrate with each other. But stay tuned. We got more content coming up on Adobe Live. See y'all in the next one.